Hi everybody, this is City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is day 14 of Christy's Beautiful Life, 30 Days of Sketches, and Scraptember 2021. The sketch for today is a Hip Kit Club sketch, and the prompt for Scraptember is mixed media. I started off this layout with some stamping on the background. The paper that I'm using is 120 pounds smooth white cardstock, and it's been coated with a few layers of Liquitex white gesso. I'm using some Staz on jet black ink, and I use a dot stamp. You could see the wooden stamp off to the right. That's just a wooden stamp that I had in my stash. And I'm now using some Technique Tuesday stamps. They're called A Little Round, and I love this set of stamps. Unfortunately, I'm missing some of the smaller dots that were in this stamp set. They were so small, I must have misplaced them, but I'm using a few of the different stamps that they have, and they're all circular. I can't recall whose channel it was because I got this tip a while back, but someone recommended that when you're stamping that you hold the stamp down on the paper for a while, and that would help the stamp to be darker and be a more clear, crisp image. And I tried that and it worked out pretty well. So you might have seen earlier, I was holding that dotted circle stamp down for a while, and that's the reason. And I wasn't as worried about the script stamp that I just used. That's a stamp that was in my stash. I don't know the manufacturer, but I wasn't worried about that turning out perfectly, so I went a little more quickly on applying that stamp. Now I'm layering some modeling paste over the stamping. I'm using a stencil that was made by Dress My Craft, and the name of the stencil is Splatter with Lines. I've been getting a lot of use out of this stencil during this series. I've used it at least 3 times. I just really like the way that this stencil looks on the page, and I'm making another Halloween layout today, and I feel that it goes really well with Halloween. It's not themed, but there's just something about the feel of it that makes it go with Halloween in my mind anyway. I recently purchased some magical shakers that are made by Lindy's. I just couldn't resist. I saw so many people using them and I thought that they looked really cool and they're fun to use, so I tried them out on this layout. I'm using some polka purple and some time travel teal. And although purple is a traditional Halloween color, teal really isn't. I got the idea to add some teal from the papers that I'm going to be using. I'm using a Tim Holtz collection that's called Abandoned. It was released several years ago at Halloween, and I picked it up from Michael's. And it's a beautiful pad. It's very rustic looking, but it has lots of really bright colors. And so I use that as my inspiration, and I pull the colors from the pattern paper. I'm continuing to add some layers of color. I wanted there to be some blue up in the top and some purple on the bottom. In the end, it kind of looks like it's just purple on the top and blue on the bottom, but I was fine with that. I really like the intensity of the color, and I love the way these magicals move around. I had to use them a couple of times to really get used to them, and I'm getting to really like them a lot. I put some of the magicals on my table and I added some water so I could make some very small splatters around the outside of the large areas of color, or the large area of color. There's only one. And I'm using this very small brush, and this creates some very small splatters. Once I had all of the teal color that I wanted, I went back in with some of the purple. I'm going to be making a layout today for one of my younger daughter's Salem, Massachusetts albums because we visit there frequently. I had finished the entire album for my older daughter, and I thought I better get going on Julia's Salem album. So I'm making a lot of layouts for her album during 30 Days of Sketches and Scraptember. I'm using one of the Creative Memory circle cutters to make a mat for my photo, which I cut out earlier with the same cutters. And I'm using that Tim Holtz Abandoned paper here. In addition to the photo mats that I cut out, I also want to cut some more circles so that I could use those for the circles that are on the layout, and I'm going to be putting some stars on those. I wanted to use up the rest of the sheet of paper, so I cut circles of different sizes from what was left of the paper after I cut out the photo mat. And I really like the way within one sheet of paper there were a couple of different colors. For example, here on the bottom it's teal, and on the top it's an orange rusty grid line. And so I was able to get a lot of different looks just from this one piece of paper, although I don't end up using all of the circles because I cut lots of extras. And then I was thinking that I should have a very small circle, so I cut one more out. I arranged the circles on my mat just to get a basic idea of how I was going to arrange them on the layout. But before I place them on the layout, I'm going to distress all of the edges using the edge of my scissors. I wanted to highlight the photo a little bit more, so I'm creating a second mat for my photo, and I'm cutting that out of a darker paper. And here I'm also distressing the edges of that paper. And then I'll layer up my photo, and then the orange mat, and then the larger blue mat. And that, I think, will make the photo a little more eye-catching than if I had just used the one orange mat. I place my photo on the background, and now I'm arranging those other circles. And you could see here I'm following along with what's in the sketch, placing the circles in approximately the same places. I pop up my photo on some fun foam, which also makes it a little bit more prominent on the page. And now I'm attaching it down with the ATG adhesive. And that helps me to move the photo or whatever else around on the background if I'm not happy with where I initially place it. I'm adding those circles onto the background, and I'm going to pop some of those up using some fun foam. At the bottom, I have two circles that'll be layered on top of each other. I'm just popping up the larger circle, and that just creates a little bit of contrast between the two circles and makes it look a little bit more interesting. I'm adding this smaller circle to the top, and I pop that up. And then I just attach this other circle that's right to the right of the photo. I just attach that directly to the page. And now I have all of the large elements in the background arranged, and I'm going to start working on the embellishments. For this layout, I'm using some chipboard stars. They have a white surface so that you could stamp on them. These were made by Technique Tuesday a while back, and I know that you can't purchase these particular stars, but you can do the exact same thing on some thick paper. You could even cut out maybe 3 of the same shape and then layer them on top of each other, and it'll make it thick just like chipboard. I'm stamping each of the stars with some StazOn ink in jet black, and I'm using a stamp set that's in my collection. I'm not sure who makes this stamp set. I know I got this on clearance a while back at Michael's. There was one stamp that fit perfectly on one of the stars that you could see over to the left, the largest star. And for the rest of the stars, I'm just using the patterns that are on the stamps. There's a stripe, and there's also some text. Before I start adding color to the stars, I spray them with a little bit of water. That helps the color to move around. If I don't spray water, sometimes the spray will just go exactly where I spray it, and it's a little harder to blend the colors together. And I continue to spray water as I'm adding different colors to help the colors blend. I started off with a Lindy Starburst spray. The color is called Yellow Rose of Texas. I used some more of the Magical Shakers from Lindy's. I used some, I hope I'm going to pronounce this right, Ledenhosen Laurel. And then I also used some Cathedral Pines Green. They're both green colors. One's a little lighter with a bit of a hint of yellow, and the other one is a little bit darker. And I want the fact that there are different colors to be clear, so I don't fully blend the colors together. But I do want them to blend a little bit. I hadn't even noticed that on the sketch there were some lines, and I really liked the way this addition of these 2 strips of pattern paper kind of brought the whole cluster together. I made the strips out of the Tim Holtz abandoned paper pad. I had an 8x8 inch paper pad. I don't know if the paper pad was available in a larger format or not, but I needed the strips to be a little bit longer than 8 inches, so I just layered them on top of each other. And now I'm using the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide in black soot to ink the edges of these 2 strips. And I am going to have to peel everything up, but I leave it in the same place. And you could see there that I took a picture of what I had done so far, just in case I needed to refer to that when I put the pieces back down on the layout. I line the strips up at the grid to make sure that they're straight. And then once I have the strips attached down to the background, I decided to add some white splatters before I added all of my elements back on again. And then after I added some white splatters, I added some black splatters as well. The black splatters tend to show up a little bit more, so I usually add a little bit more of the white splatters than the black splatters, and I just love that touch. I love adding those splatters. I was thinking that the ATG adhesive wasn't really holding down those strips because there's so much mixed media on the background, so I got out some heavy-duty gel medium, and I'm using that to attach the strips down. Sometimes there's just so much mixed media on the background that you have to use the gel medium. It's such an excellent adhesive. And then I decided I would use it on the back of the photo as well. Since the paper wasn't being held down, I wasn't sure that the foam would be held down. And I'm laughing at how black my fingers are. You can definitely tell that I've been playing with a lot of mixed media on this day. Now, just to make sure that all of these circles stay put, I'm using some of the gel medium on those as well. Once all of those elements are glued down to the paper, I want to start working on the stars and get those down on the layout as well. Before I attach the stars down to the layout, I wanted to add a little bit of a sparkly, shiny coat to them, so I'm using some Bow Bunny glitter paste. The color is sugar, but it's really just a transparent glitter paste that adds just a little bit, like I said, of sparkle and shine. And I found that you could add this glitter paste to pretty much anything, and I've been using it quite a bit lately, so you could see that I have almost none left in this jar. Luckily, I have another jar, and then when that's gone, I'll have to figure out what else to use. A few moments ago, I trialed the stars on the layout, and I felt that they didn't stand out enough from the layout. So I thought that it would make the stars a little more noticeable if they had a white border. So I'm using a paint pen. This is called a painter's paint pen, but I'm sure you could use any brand that has a fine tip when you want to create some contrast between an element and the background. I suddenly decided that some white splatters would look good on the stars, so I added those. I didn't get many splatters on that small star, so I just used the tip of the straw that's in the paint and I dotted some dots around that star. Off camera, I used the paint pen and I put a white border around all of the stars. I had to put more than one coat of the white paint on because I wanted the white to be very, very white. I recently purchased something called Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. It's a small bottle of white paint and it's very, very white, and you could use it in the same way that I used the paint pen here. In order to fit the star underneath the photo, I had to cut away some of the foam so that it would sit flat and there wouldn't be any bumps there. So I cut away some of the foam, and then I use some of the gel medium to stick the photo down to the star. Although it didn't work right away, I had to layer another star on top of it, and that kind of helped to hold the photo down. I could have also put something heavy on top of the photo. I've done that in the past, and it helps to hold things down while the gel medium dries, because once the gel medium dries, it's a very strong adhesive. I'm looking through these Tim Holtz chipboard pieces to try to find a title, and there were a couple of different titles that I thought might work, but I finally decided on Mischievous. This photo was taken in Salem when we were on vacation and we were doing a lot of Halloween-related activities, and I do make the whole album Halloween themed, even if what we're doing doesn't necessarily have to do with Halloween. So I feel like Mischievous kind of describes Julia in general in a good way. Julia's a really fun person. She keeps us all laughing. Now I'm adding some phrases from a Tim Holtz sticker book that I got this year in Joann. I was thrilled that there was one sticker that said Salem, Massachusetts, and there were a couple of others that said things like Returned Wanderers, A Curious Woman, The Strange Story, and I wanted to add some additional lines of text, so I added all of those in. And now I'm adding some I think they're epoxy or resin bats. I love these bats, and I'm being very good, and I'm not hoarding them. I have almost used them up, and I'm continuing to use them, telling myself that they're meant to be used. They would look nice on this layout, so I have to get them on the page. So I was proud of myself, although I couldn't help thinking, where am I going to get more bats that are similar to this? I bought those in Michael's about 3 years ago, and I bought a whole bunch of them through the Halloween season, and now I just have the 1 pack left. I am adding some black jewels to the centers of all of the stars. I'm putting larger jewels on the larger stars and smaller jewels on the smaller stars. I use some glue to reinforce one of the stars, and the layout is complete. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or if you just want to say hello. I will now give my daily reminder to check in the description box. There are links to all of the other scrapbookers following along with this challenge. There's a playlist of lots of different videos from 30 Days of Sketches and Scraptember. There's a link to the Facebook group. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day, and I hope that you'll be back and join me again tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.